Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing our build of the Estes Doorknob. So this is part 2 of painting, I guess. In the intervening time, which was over a week in real life, unfortunately, I did get half of this painted, and I ended up removing the masking tape that we used in the previous bit. Overall, reasonably successful. You can see there's a bit of black that bled through right here. I would consider taking an X-Acto knife to this, hobby knife, and trying to scrape a little bit of that off. But as it turns out, this is going to end up, there's some decals that go near there, so I don't think I'm going to do anything about it, at least not for the time being. So, according to the decal instructions here, there are a bunch of these little decals, and one of them I could certainly put over top of that, at least in part. I don't know if that'll work, but so I'm just going to leave it for the time being. Anyway, this is 2 parts of me painting because the orange part is, well, it's half done. The lower part of the body tube is taken care of. Now I need to figure out how I'm going to mask off the top so I can put that in. And this, I think, is going to be, well, it's going to be a bit difficult because the nose cone is, well, it's round because it's a cone. Well, it's not actually a cone, but it is essentially a cone, and that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mask around here, and it seems to me that probably wasn't enough tape, but whatever, it's going to be at least a good start. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to, oh, and also you can see the paint at this transition was, a couple spots got a little bit underneath what I would have liked, but that's not a big deal because a decal is going to go over top of that, which is why I'm not as concerned about it. Anyway, so I'm going to mask off the top of this, like so, and yeah, it looks like I didn't quite get enough tape here. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. Just a little bit more. Ideally, you do this in one, because the more bits of tape you have, the more likely you're not going to have it perfectly straight, and you're not going to have it smoothed out enough so paint could get under there. Alright, that's taken care of. When I go to paint this, I'm going to wrap this in a piece of computer paper like so, cover it up. Actually, it'll probably end up being like that since I just didn't quite reach around, which I should note, right, because paper is 8.5, and I know this is over 9 because I measured it before. Alright, now the next bit is going to be a little bit trickier, and I do need the nose cone because the next bit of color is going to transition from the body tube into the nose cone. The one advantage I do have here is that there is a seam in the nose cone. It's right here, and there's one on the other side too. So they are, completely at 180 degrees distance apart from each other. So I can at least use that to line up what I want to do here. And what I'm going to end up doing, oh, the other thing too worth mentioning is I'm not going the whole way to the end of the nose cone. The last, I don't know, well, I don't know how long the nose cone is. The instructions say that the paint stops 8 inches from the transition from the nose cone, or well, however how long the nose cone is. So I'm measuring this, and it looks like the last, I don't know, inch or so of the nose cone is going to just be white. Okay, I'm just going to eyeball that. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the tape like this, and I'm going to mask off the part that is in line with my orange tube to begin with. But I think before I do that, well, I'm going to cut this just so I have it. But before I'm going to do that, I am going to mask off that last inch or so of the white nose cone. Fortunately, I don't need to repaint this. If I did need to repaint that, it would get unpleasant. It's easier to mask kind of like going uphill rather than it is the other direction. So I'm going to remove the body tube for the time being. I'm just going to mask off, I'm going to eyeball it here, but essentially the length of the tape, and that's going to be kind of it. So I'm going to do my best to get this straight. I'm wrapping it around. Yeah, that last little bit there wasn't quite on as straight as it could have been. That should be passable. It's probably not going to be perfectly straight, but it shouldn't be that bad either. Alright, so I'm going to just kind of squeeze that down. There's a little bit of nose cone sticking out there, so I'll probably put a piece of just regular old masking tape just to cover that so I don't screw it up. Alright, anyway, back to the rocket part. Now I'm going to do my best to line up this line here with the seam, and then I'm going to run my tape following that seam as best I can all the way up to the part that I masked off along the seam here. And this doesn't, it's close, but it's not quite right now, I don't think. There we go. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to, this part should be fine, but I'm going to get a lot of bubbles in this part because this isn't flat, right? And because it's not flat, it's not going to lay perfectly smoothly. I'm actually going to snip some of this off because I do need a second piece of tape that's going to follow this line, and there's going to be a lot of overlap here, and I don't need to worry about that right now. So I'm just going to snip that part off. I don't need this to be particularly good just quite yet. I do want it to be pretty flat. Now all these air pockets aren't going to be good for anything, but they're also, I mean, they're somewhat unavoidable because I've got a curved body. Now, it shouldn't matter too much in the long run because it's going to be mostly on the inside. Should kind of run low on this tape. One of the problems that I had that made this part of the project take so long was my orange paint needed to be replaced. The orange is like, I don't know, it's notorious for clogging up the nozzle, and try as I might, I couldn't manage to clean the nozzle very effectively, so I ended up having to replace it, which meant I had to go buy some more orange paint, among other things. And while I was out shopping, I actually looked for some more of this ultra fine line, or sharp line, and I could not find any. So that was kind of a bummer. Alright, I'm going to carefully smooth this again, and again I'm going to trim this bit off. Same reason as the previous time. Alright. Alright. So there are, of course, a lot of air bubbles in here. But it shouldn't matter because I can tell that this is overlapped. Even if some paint does get in there, it's not gonna get down to the white part. Okay. So anyway, I'm not gonna record myself doing the other part because it's the exact same thing. But this part and this part are gonna get painted orange, so they are offset to the existing orange. I should also point out, like this part right here, this is not as straight as it could be, and I think part of that happened because the tape that I used wasn't, I don't know, deformed a little bit or something. I'm not entirely sure. So if you are really, really concerned about making this as beautiful as you could, I don't know, you could consider putting some lines on this, but anything you add, any lines that you put on there, you're going to have to remove or just kind of deal with as a finished product. And I know I just said that I wasn't going to film myself doing this, but I guess this is the first step. I will continue doing this on my own off camera, but it seems like a good place to wrap it up. I will be painting the remainder of this, and then hopefully I will be good to start doing the decals in the next video, along with putting those rail buttons on. I do actually need to drill them out as well, because they are not drilled out at all right now. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next step, whenever that happens to be.